Hello, Lucy. I'm Lucy, as you
Yeah,
know.
hi.
Thank you for offering to come and talk to us about mental health and
Mhm.
mainly our apprentices. First of all, tell us a bit about yourself, and so that the apprentices know who you are and
Mhm.
your background in mental health and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Lucy Wiseman. I'm a neighbour of yours
Yeah,
and friend. But yeah, really happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
yeah,
Um, so my background is I work as a therapist.
yeah.
I'm practicing as a therapist. I work predominantly with people who work in the prison service, actually,
Wow.
but I do also work in private practice.
Yeah,
So I see people from all walks of life, actually mainly on a digital platform. So
wow.
therapy is online these days.
Of course.
Which is great. I've got a background working for a mental health charity
Yeah,
in safeguarding.
yeah.
So yeah, for quite a number of years now. I'm focusing on the therapy right now, though.
Brilliant.
So thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thank you very much for being here and, to for offering to allow us to put it on social media and on YouTube as well, because most of our students will be probably watching it on YouTube.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
So, getting into the questions,
Mhm.
what are some of the most common mental health challenges you see in young people who are in training these days?
I think it's really hard to answer that question, in all honesty. I
Yeah.
think a key one that stands out is anxiety.
Okay.
Um, Super common, regardless of whether you're a trainee, a student, or anything. I think it's one of those where it's a case of kind of worrying about the future, the unknown. There's a
Yeah.
lot of uncertainty, particularly if you're in a period of transition in your career. So it can be really hard to kind of, you only know what you know. And so
Yes.
when you're going into something unknown, it can feel really uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
anxiety is a key one, I would say.
Yeah.
I think what I would say is with anxiety, it's an interesting one because obviously it feels really horrible when you're experiencing it,
Yeah.
but it can be a little bit of a superpower. We tend to only feel anxious when we are bothered about something, when it matters to us,
Yeah.
when we care.
Mm.
So the anxiety sometimes gives us a little boost of adrenaline and gives us that little extra oomph to kind of do our best
Yeah.
in a moment of worry, like an exam or something like that.
Yeah.
It can be really useful to channel it in a positive way.
Yeah.
But equally, it can be quite debilitating.
Of course.
So if it becomes really overwhelming, that's when it can become a bit of a problem. We get like flooded with stress hormones and adrenaline, and it can be really, really horrible to
Of
experience.
course.
So I think it's just thinking about sort of how that affects you. So yeah, it can be
Good and bad.
anxiety can be good and bad, and that tends to be a key one. But I think regardless of your status as a trainee or a student or a grown up,
Yeah.
whatever that is,
Yeah.
like we've all got mental health.
Of course.
So I don't think there's one condition that stands out really. I've highlighted anxiety as an example, but I
Yeah.
think anyone at any age can experience any mental health condition.
Yeah.
I think we just all experience mental health on a spectrum throughout our lives, and it will come in waves, really. So in
Yeah.
the same way that we have our physical health.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that. How can someone tell the difference between just normal stress and something more serious that might need intervention, in your opinion?
Okay, well, I think stress is unfortunately inevitable.
Of course.
We all have a bit of a window of tolerance to stress.
Yeah.
And I think it depends what's going on in our world as to how able we are to cope with that.
Yeah.
So when we have our studies or work in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
actually, if we've got all sorts going on in our personal lives, it can be really difficult to kind of separate the two. We
Yes.
take it all with us
Yeah.
to work, to
Mm-hmm.
home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the stress we experience has to be looked at quite holistically in like a broader sense rather
Yeah.
than isolated areas of life.
Yeah.
But I think thinking about that sort of where our stresses are coming from, if we've got heightened stress at work and we've got heightened stress at home and we've got heightened stress in our relationships,
Yeah.
this is all feeding in stress. If we sort of almost picture like a cup being filled with
Yeah.
water and more's being poured in, more's
Yeah.
being poured in.
Yeah.
If we don't let some out the bottom, if we don't create some little holes to
Yeah.
release some pressure, to take some of that away,
Yeah.
we'll keep pouring in and eventually it will overflow.
Of course.
And so sometimes we can find the smallest thing will overflow our cup.
Right.
It can be, and actually it's rarely about that thing. It's normally an
Everything
accumulation
else.
of things.
Yeah.
So we can find that we're in a very sort of stressful situation in our entire body because lots is feeding in.
Of
So it's
course.
often not in isolation.
Yeah.
So, you know, you might burst into tears over something really small, and actually normally you might tolerate that really well.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a bit of an indicator that things are not okay, that our body and our mind is feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Right.
I think it can be helpful to think about it from a sort of understanding the psychoeducation a bit, like, and understanding what's happening when we're feeling like that, because you might have heard of like the fight flight response.
Yeah.
You know, like back in the day, when like early humans hunting and gathering, you know, if you're faced with a predator, you want to be able to keep safe if you like come face to face with a lion. And so naturally our bodies respond.
Of course.
So the stress response is great because it's there to keep us safe.
Of course.
So we will, you know, are we going to fight the lion? Probably not. Flight, are we going to run away? You know, we want our muscles to have blood supply, oxygen, so we can run, we can get out of there, we can get safe. You know, the freeze response, maybe it won't see us if we stand really still.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually, the lion will go away, that threat disappears quite quickly.
Yeah.
In daily life now, we tend to find that the stress response is more of a drip feed and it's sustained over a long period of time. So what we find is the body is in a state of fight flight quite a lot.
Right.
And that then can become the norm. So we'll notice things like, you know, increased heart rate, sweating, you know, like fidgety, like we can be quite irritable because our body is in this heightened state of alert. We don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we can sort of really kind of tune into those physical symptoms a little bit as well. But also recognize that there is a counter to that and that we can activate more of our soothe system in our body, like which is governed by our parasympathetic nervous system, which is more to do with how we calm ourselves. It's sometimes called like the rest and digest mode, like the body can't rest and settle and sleep and be calm if it's trying to be safe.
Of course.
So those two things can't. I think sort of going back to what I was saying, everyone's window of tolerance is different, depends what you've got going on in your world. So yeah, I think going back to your question about how you know when you need to seek support, I guess it's sort of checking in on all of that, but recognizing what's normal for you. But other things like if you find yourself not enjoying the things that you normally enjoy, if you find yourself isolating yourself from people that you love, and on a more severe level, if you find yourself having thoughts of harming yourself or thoughts of dying or death, they can be really sort of severe signs that you're not okay. So again, it comes on a bit of a spectrum. There's always going to be, of course, a variety for everyone. It's knowing yourself, what's normal for you, and noticing when things aren't quite right. But there's so much support out there. So, and often, you know, these feelings of anxiety and stress, they fester when they're in the dark on their own, when you're in your own thoughts. As soon as you shine a light on them and you share your problems and you have people around you, it tends to dissipate. So it can be really helpful to reach out and just let someone know that you're not okay.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. What coping strategies would you recommend for dealing with exam stress, work deadlines, and other deadlines, or fear of failure?
Yeah, so stress, anxiety, you just hit the nail on the head there. It's all of that's often rooted in a fear of failure. You know, we all want to do well. We don't want it to go wrong. And I think you've also kind of mentioned the word resilience a little bit before as well. I think anxiety and fear, it tends to kind of be either rearward facing, so we're worrying about something that's already happened, or we're anxious or fearful about something that's yet to happen. So it tends to be, something that's in the future. Anxiety doesn't, and stress and that kind of fear doesn't tend to happen in the present moment if we're very grounded, if we're very in the moment, if we're, in the here and now. It's often more associated with the unknown. It's, I'm not sure what's going to happen, or I'm worried about what has already happened. I suppose if we focus on the things we do know, and we feel like we can work with the things that help us feel in control, that can be really useful. So we can sort of look at the information that we have, whether it's our revision notes, and we can make a plan for ourselves to feel grounded with structure, like an exam revision timetable, or attending certain sessions that are going to feel helpful. Really bring that structure into your day to be in the present of your learning. Can be really good. But also kind of going back to like that kind of present moment mindfulness, anything that you can do to bring yourself in the here and now, even if it's just taking a deep breath and just having a moment where you're kind of aware of your body, your feet on the ground, and just being in the moment, even just for a few seconds, can be enough to shift your body from that state of anxiety and stress to feeling a little bit more calm, a little bit more in control. So it can be something really simple.
It's weird, isn't it? How really simple things are what we don't think of when we are stressed in the real world. It's weird, but it's so true. Many accounting apprentices, they feel the need or pressure to be always accurate, because quality and accuracy is an important aspect in accounting. So how can they manage anxiety around making mistakes, for example? Because sometimes they make mistakes, but they feel terrible about it.
I think what strikes me about that, first of all, I think humans are inherently flawed. we make mistakes.
Of course.
We inevitably will. It's going to happen. And I think kind of going back to what we've spoken about, sort of about that, I guess, the resilience around managing the stress. Resilience is rarely built in a place where you're always right. It doesn't kind of grow in a place where you are always pinpoint accurate and you're winning at life. Resilience kind of comes from a place of where we sit in that uncomfortable place where we feel frustrated because we don't know something, or we're learning, or we get it wrong and we have to try again. It's that bouncing back from something that's not quite gone as well as we'd hoped. And the more we can kind of sit in that uncomfortable place of not knowing if we've done it quite right, or also being okay with good enough is good enough sometimes. The more we can sit in that place, the more resilient we will become. So I think that it's easier said than done, honestly. I think one thing that comes to mind thinking about how we might manage that, because it isn't a really uncomfortable thing to sit with, especially if we have made a mistake and it's bothering us. It's affecting how we feel about ourselves, because we often associate our success in the workplace or in our studies with how much we value ourselves as a person, and it can be really internalized, which is really hard to bear. But I think that really sort of shows where there is a need to invite in a bit of compassion for self. I think we're all quite good at offering it to other people. And it's really, really hard to do the same for ourselves. So with that sort of little internal voice of thinking, I've made a mistake, I'm not good enough, or worrying about that, thinking a little bit, sometimes remove yourself from the picture and think, how would I speak to a friend about this? How would you support a loved one who's done the same? You would be there for them with love and compassion, and you would build them up, and you would help them try again. For some reason we beat ourselves up and we can be quite unkind to ourselves. So I think inviting self-compassion is really key when it comes to having a point where we fail, because failure is where we learn.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point. And I like the analogy of putting ourselves almost outside of that
Mhm.
zone that we're in when the way we treat ourselves, isn't it? Looking at it from a
Mhm.
third party perspective.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
brilliant. What should somebody do if they feel overwhelmed at work, but they don't feel comfortable talking to their manager? Because again, it's that, younger apprentices feel that their managers are quite senior, quite,
Mhm. Mhm.
high up, and they don't want to talk to them. So what should they do in those circumstances?
It's really tricky, isn't it? Because I
Mm,
think, you can be feeling something really uncomfortable and feel like you're the only person in the world that's feeling this and that you've got no
mm,
one to turn to because perhaps you don't feel you can if there's a
yeah,
hierarchy or,
yeah,
perhaps, people who are more authoritative. So it's
yeah,
really difficult where there's a bit of a power dynamic
yeah.
at
Hmm.
play. I think, really use your peers,
Yeah,
use each other,
yeah.
lean on each other. Also recognize the things that you can do for yourself.
Hmm.
Really think if you're struggling, what do you need? Be curious about what it is you want to
Hmm.
change and what you need to feel better. So
Yeah,
really kind of taking time to focus on your own self-care practice and
yeah,
just making sure that you're looking after yourself a little bit more than perhaps you normally would
yeah,
because you're finding things hard, you're struggling.
yeah,
You might, if you can, in a workplace, you
yeah,
might choose to separate yourself from an environment of stress. You might take some annual leave if you can.
yeah,
If you can't do that in a study setting,
yeah.
and you perhaps aren't feeling like you've got your own peers to lean on,
Mm,
it can be a really lonely place. There are other agencies and things you can reach out to, whether it's going to your GP,
yeah,
whether it's reaching out to some online support or peer support platforms. There's
yeah,
so many things out there
yeah,
where you can get support. But I guess it wouldn't necessarily have to be your manager. If there's a different manager that you have a bit of rapport with,
yeah.
maybe go
Could
to
be
them
then.
instead. It doesn't have to be your kind of
Yeah,
chain of command.
immediate manager.
Yeah.
Because as apprentices, they are encouraged to come to me as their tutor as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they can just come and have a chat with me and
Yeah.
tell me about how they feel, because then I might be able to help them by perhaps, supporting them in a way that they feel comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
rather than perhaps how they might feel talking to their manager. That's very valid.
Mm-hmm.
What are some simple everyday practices that young people can build into their routine to support good mental health?
I think that varies for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things that you could incorporate from like a self-care perspective. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of young people, if they have ever engaged in mental health services, will say, oh, I just get told to have a bath and have a warm bath and it'll make everything better. You can do that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having a nice warm bath
Yeah.
as self-care, but self-care is a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all warm baths and
Yeah.
bubbles.
Yeah.
It can be anything that helps you feel more yourself, helps you relieve your stress. So
Yeah.
it might be walking your dog, it might be spending time with friends, it
Yeah.
might be journaling how you feel.
Yeah.
It could be, listening to music that channels the emotions you're feeling. It's
Yeah.
so many things that might work for you.
Yeah.
You might like to do a creative hobby to just escape from whatever it is you're feeling and really immerse in something that gives you focus and clarity.
Yeah.
I think being aware of who you spend your time with and how they make you feel,
Yeah.
how you're spending your time outside of your studies as well.
Yeah.
Particularly in the modern day with social media, is
Yeah.
it adding value? Is it making you feel good, or is it depleting you? Being really mindful of how you're spending your time and where your time is spent. So having really healthy boundaries around time where you go, I'm studying in this time, and actually I'm having a break at this time because I'm allowed. You give yourself permission to kind of compartmentalize and be okay with that. You're allowed to have breaks,
of course.
But it's important that you make enough time to study so that you've done your best. So being really kind of aware of your boundaries around what's going on in your world can be really helpful. In addition to that, self-compassion, having a kind voice to yourself, and doing anything that helps you feel good.
Yeah, because sometimes I also say to my students, journaling is quite good, isn't it? Just to put your thoughts down on paper. It's almost like you're sharing it with somebody to help them kind of overcome that overburdening of themselves by just thinking too much about something and not being able to share it with anybody. So I've encouraged them to journal as well. What advice would you give someone who wants to support a friend or a co-worker who's clearly struggling with their mental health in the workplace? How could they help somebody else?
I think, first of all, it's important to say that in order for you to help someone else, you need to be okay. So it's a little bit like, put your own life jacket on first before you help someone else. If you're really struggling yourself, it might be that maybe you're not the right person to help someone else who's struggling, and that's okay. But so to really check in with yourself, do you have capacity to support this person at that time? And if you are, then brilliant. They might just want to feel heard. They might not need you to do anything. They might not need you to fix the thing. It might just be a listening ear, someone to show empathy and kindness. Or it might be that you're noticing something in someone else and maybe they've not even come to you about it. So you might reach out and say, hey, how are you? I've noticed you're a bit quiet today. I'm here if you need me. It might just be that sort of little reaching out
that makes the difference.
Just letting people know that they're not on their own. And just sort of not being on your own with that. It can be really hard if you feel like you're carrying someone else's stress and worry. So just making sure that you've got your own kind of ways of managing that as well, so that you're not taking on too much on top of your own stuff.
And how could they manage that? Like, not feel overburdened with other people's problems, I suppose.
I suppose it goes back to kind of that sort of
checking in with themselves.
Just knowing what that window of tolerance is like to their own stress and someone else's. But I mean, some workplaces have like mental health first aiders or somebody at work or a member of staff who is a designated mental health person. It might be that you would go to them. You might use your tutors. There are people there to support. Yourself,
of course,
being one of them. So it's okay to kind of say, I'm supporting someone and I'm finding it hard. Can I get some help?
Absolutely.
Or maybe you're finding yourself not okay at the same time. So it's really important to kind of use those people and that support around you.
What are some signs of emotional resilience, and how can young people start building that early on in life?
So that's a really great question. Because I think when it comes to mental health, a lot of people associate it with things that are wrong, when we're broken, or when something is in a state of crisis. Actually, going back to what we've touched on already, we've all got mental health, and it comes on a bit of a sliding spectrum of how we are at any one time, in the same way that we have our physical health.
Of course.
So we don't only start brushing our teeth when they start falling out because we're worried about them, and we don't only go to the gym when we're told we have a health condition. We brush our teeth as a daily practice for good hygiene. We want our teeth to look sparkly and white. We want to go to the gym to look and feel good, not just to stave off diabetes or something. Actually, we can be proactive about it because we want to be. We want to be our best selves. So to take a proactive approach to your mental health and well-being, or your mental fitness, as it's sometimes referred to, can be kind of channeling things that empower us to feel strong and resilient. They build resilience, but also when we are anxious and stressed and we're in that fight-flight space, as we've spoken about before, we can't be in a state of focus and flow and creativity, and we can't be thriving because we're surviving.
Yes.
So anything that we can do to foster a state where we are calm and we can find focus and clarity and we can feel like we're in balance. That's your space. That's where you know that you're kind of feeling mentally fit. So it can be really important, I think, just to be mindful of when we're feeling those things. And do more of that. I think so much about our mental health and our well-being is about just noticing it for ourselves. Be curious about how you are. Like, ask yourself, how am I today? And if you're enjoying an activity or you're in a state of flow and you're finding your focus, notice what you're doing and what you were doing before. Who are you with? What have you eaten? Have you drunk? Have you really looked after yourself? In what state do you find yourself thriving? So it's all about noticing really what helps you tick.
Brilliant. Because sometimes when we're working at 110 miles per hour, you don't tend to notice what's happening around you until you're so exhausted and tired. And that's when you fall flat and you think, oh, I'm tired now. But actually, like you said, what triggers that actual flow and focus is what you want more of rather than what brings you down.
And everyone's got a different thing. Not everybody wants to meditate or journal or whatever it might be. But it's okay to give them a go. And if they work for you, great. And if they don't, that's fine. It's just finding things that work for you that help you feel like you're firing on all cylinders. So you can just be your best self, really.
Brilliant. And any other advice you think is relevant to our students who perhaps need to go still on a long journey before they get to a point where they feel comfortable with their mental health as they are with physical health? Because these days I notice most of our students go to the gym. When I was their age, I don't think I did go to the gym, but most of them are so conscious of their physical health, despite what sometimes people think that kids these days are all on social media. I've seen the best side of kids. They are so conscious of how they look, of how they look after their bodies. What else would you recommend that they do that would kind of almost help them in their daily lives, but also help them to build that long-term sustainable mental health for themselves?
Again, I think it varies person to person, but I think you've highlighted a really sort of significant thing. But there's no doubt about it that the mind and the body are connected. So our physical and mental health are very much correlated. Actually, most people exercise. Yes, they want to look good and they want to feel good. But often, what you'll notice is physical exercise makes us feel good mentally too. So there is a correlation there. The mind-body connection is very much a thing. Just I think the narrative around mental health is shifting from, like, I suppose, having a stigma around people talking. I think people do feel like they've got a little bit more permission to speak when they're struggling. And if there's physical things that make you feel good, that's fine if they work for you. And like I say, they come hand in hand with feeling mentally well as well. So I think it varies person to person, but try things, just give it a go and see. But, don't be shy if you're struggling. If you genuinely need some support or you don't know what to try and do, speak to a friend, go online, use peer support forums, go to your doctor. There's so much support out there. So if you'd like, I can give you some resources which you can share with your students and colleagues, so that there's a sort of a variety of places for people to go if they do need a little bit of extra help.
Of course, that's great. Thank you ever so much, Lucy, for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our students about mental health. And I'm very, very grateful. I'm sure they will benefit immensely from this, and
Mhm.
hopefully at some point in the future you'll perhaps come and talk to them face to face as
Yeah,
well.
that would be lovely.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.